Let me just turn the conversation around just to talk about it from the perspective of the GBS professional, which all of us are, but we're maybe further down the career than the people growing their careers. How should a GPS professional look at their career within the concept of GBS, and what are the things that they should be thinking about and doing? And by the way, the chapter of the book has a lot of advice on this about really understanding who you are and where you want to go. But what are your opinions on that?
I'm going to just add to that question because I would
Yeah,
love to hear Deb talk about this. Um, I think the reality is that most people, when they join the GBS industry, they haven't been to school to get a degree in GBS, right? They've either learned finance or IT or something like that, and they're thrown into this evolving new industry. What tends to happen is that they start at the entry level and they're basically rolling up their sleeves and doing transactions or automation, as the case may be. And in the absence of a career architecture that Deb was talking about, they actually don't know where to go. What's my next step? So this is something that we keep hearing about constantly. What next assignment should I take? What is the move that I need to make? So one day I become a GBS leader if I stay on in this
yeah.
particular industry. What I love about what Deb's done through all of her experience and research is she's gotten it down to personas, which
Mm.
is understand thyself, understand your skills, and then here's a map on how you can essentially build on that to essentially be successful. So, Deb, let me hand this over to you because I think this is incredibly important.
Well, I mean, first of all, let's call it what it is. We have tiering in our GBS organizations. We have people who transact, who execute, and we have people who manage. And the career pathways are very different for both. Let's call it what it is. And I think we all know that a good bit of the transactional work is going to be agentified away. It is going to happen. That's going to put even more pressure and create more opportunity for people who actually manage, who make decisions, who
Mm.
interpret, who have to collaborate, who have to have industry context. But one of the things I've identified is that they're really, if you look at that class of professionals, that level of professionals, they're really four career paths. And most of our career paths center in two buckets. If you think about a four box, and we talk about this in the report, in the lower left-hand corner is the expert. Who is the expert? It's somebody who really knows, technically is quite good, who knows how to manage a process, who knows what good looks like. And what these experts do is that they may leave companies and become an expert in another company, but boy, do they know their onions. They really understand their craft. Think a GPO who goes from company to company to company, or think about someone who is a business analyst who becomes a GPO. They basically know how to get work done. This is a class who know how to get work done. Typically, they don't move. They may move within company. They're very internal, but they don't move out a lot unless they're angry or some headhunter comes calling and says, we got this great opportunity with a little bit more scope and a little bit more scale. But for the most part, they're experts. They stay broadly within a box. The next persona is the leader. They're people who know how to run stuff. They may have two expertises in their bag of tricks, but they know how to move. They have an instinct when they have to switch roles. But fundamentally, think of them as good managers. They
Yeah.
know enough to be dangerous, but they know enough to manage teams of people. They have a good command of management skills. Most of our GPS professionals are in those boxes, to be very
Yeah.
honest. If someone really can change their risk profile and really knows how to connect the dots differently, they can move to the right. In the lower right-hand corner is what I call the adapter. The adapter is able to take what they know from being an expert, being from shared services or GBS, and apply it to different situations.
Yeah.
So think about someone who's worked in a company and then becomes an operating partner in private equity, for example. Or someone who ran marketing shared services and then goes and runs marketing operations in a big media agency. For the most part, they adapt the skills they have, but they work in a different context. They're
Yeah.
out of GBS for the most part, but they take all those finely honed capabilities that they gained in GBS or shared services and they move out. And the upper right-hand corner is what I call the interpreter. There are people who've taken everything they've known and they take risks. Tony's an interpreter. I'm an interpreter. I mean, I've come a long way from detailing staircases. I got to tell you that. It wasn't a lot of fun. One of them is in France, so you can go and see it if you really
Is it
want.
still there?
It's at the Centre of Pompidou. Okay, you really don't want to look at it. But that's
I
another.
do. Oh my God.
Okay,
Okay. It's at the
long time
museum.
ago.
Okay.
Long time, long time ago. I didn't do the fountain, but the um, the interpreter basically says, "I know all this stuff. I can apply it in all sorts of strange
Yeah.
and wonderful combinations."
Yeah.
You cannot move to the right of your career. Start to apply what you know about shared services and put it in a different context, or what you know about shared services and make it up, because
Yeah.
interpreters make things up unless you can take risk. So people who are experts and leaders typically don't have a big risk profile. If you're an interpreter, you better have your mortgage paid and your kids out of school, to be very honest, because it's not necessarily steady. You'll find most of our interpreters are later in
Yeah.
life because of the risk profile. But you can't just become an adapter and interpreter, go out of GBS
Yeah.
unless you have a brand of sorts. Unless you stand for something, unless someone can see, this person knows this and they can solve this because that's part of their innate brand.
Yeah.
So most of our GBS people, to be honest with you, do not create their own brands. And that's a huge miss. That's an absolutely huge miss. But it takes a long time to create a brand, because when you do, other opportunities open up.
Yeah.
There's a gentleman who was in GBS in the US who I informally coached, who wanted to have a portfolio life, wanted to be an interpreter. And we talked about the fact he had to write. We talked about the fact he had to show up. We talked about the fact he had to have an opinion, even though people might not like his opinion. People will respect an opinion they don't like if they think it's well-grounded, even though they don't agree with it. And he was able to create an interpretive career, but it takes a lot of work. And most of us think, I really don't have time to create a brand because I've got so much work to do. This is investing in yourself. And to me, it's a non-negotiable.
I think it's absolutely critical if you have any kind of aspirations to go beyond what you're doing. But the thing that excites me about the 4 personas and the framework that Deb just shared, Tim, is that I feel like for the industry, for the first time, we start to have a structure where young people can essentially figure out what their strengths are, what they want to be, and then they can start moving in that direction. I can tell you that looking at the glass half full, as I always do, with all of the turmoil happening in the GBS industry, there is going to be a lot of change. There's no doubt about it. That's not the question. The question is, what are you as an individual going to do about yourself? Not about changing the world, but about yourself. I think, and this is the half full piece, I am seeing many, many, many more people try and use their unique GBS experiences and then, translate that into other successes. So, for example, I'm seeing many more GBS leaders use GBS as a stepping stone into other careers. As Deb was saying on the top right quadrant, the CFO, the current CFO of Procter & Gamble, was once a GBS young person.
Is that right? Is that right? Yeah.
Yes, and the reason why
And
you have more
Amex
and more,
too, Amex too was a rotation through.
there you
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
You see them scattered around,
Yeah.
not
Yes.
pervasive, but there are some.
Yes, there are some and growing, and that is the point. Now, what is it about GBS that actually helps these people get successful? Well, in a steady old company, you have this organization that is all about constant change. That's
Yeah.
about transformation. That's about either you grow or your job is gone, right? That is exactly the cooker, if you will,
Yeah.
that develops great talent that can then be reapplied. And so that's, I think, the opportunity of what Deb's talking about.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I'm going to warn you about something. Part of the problem we have, the imperative to master capabilities right now has never been greater, because a lot of what we do is execution, which is going to go away. And unless we develop the capabilities that allow us to orchestrate, to see between value streams, and able to direct networks, the skill set is going to be not radically different, but it's going to change. And we better start focusing on those
Yeah.
capabilities right now. We don't really have a choice.
Yeah,
Listen,
we
I
have
think
to
that,
invest. Yes, exactly, in
I,
ourselves. Sorry, Tim.
no, I think that's a really nice place to sort of bring